and current events. From the housetops, coming up next.
From the Housetops is pleased to present Our Lady of Perpetual Help with Muriel Delaney.
Of all the titles of Our Lady, there is none more consoling, none so hopeful as that of Mother of Perpetual Help. God has given us His Mother, with all the unselfish love of a mother for His children, and there is nothing our Mother would refuse us. And since Mother knows best, she obtains for us all those blessings and graces that are far better for us than we could ever ask for. All of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the icon portrait of the Mother of Perpetual Help. The story of the portrait and its history is fascinating. Some famous Marian portraits, and our Mother of Perpetual Help included among them, are traditionally believed to have been painted by St. Luke. The portrait of Perpetual Help stands in this category, for added to a long-standing tradition are significant historical facts supporting the contention that it was rendered by the artist evangelist. We know that St. Luke, after recording the journeys of St. Paul, became the apostle's close companion and disciple. Their travels at one point brought them to Crete, where their unfinished labors were entrusted to a faithful convert, St. Titus, whom they made the first bishop of that island. Since the only document concerning the history of our famous icon refers exclusively to Crete, it is reasonable to conclude that St. Luke could have left this miraculous picture with St. Titus. A Vatican document, dating back to the 15th century, narrates a story of a wealthy and pious merchant from this Mediterranean isle who sheltered the picture in his house. Apparently his intention was to protect the sacred image from the desecration by the Turks, then swiftly descending upon southern Europe to destroy all traces of Christianity. As the conquering Mohammedans moved closer to Greece, many Cretans became apprehensive. This ever-increasing threat prompted great numbers to flee from the island to safer mainland countries. The pious merchant was among those who on one occasion boarded a vessel sailing for Italy, bringing with him, of course, the painting of Our Lady of Perpetual Help. When the ship reached deep waters, there suddenly arose a most terrible storm. As waves began to cover the helpless vessel completely, even the sailors feared that perhaps all would be lost. The Cretan merchants quickly retrieved the holy portrait from his cabin, and returning to the deck, he held it up to the sky, repeatedly beseeching the Mother of Perpetual Help for aid. The other passengers, following his example, intoned the same prayer. Within a few minutes the skies were cleared and the ocean calmed, thus enabling the ship to continue safely to port. This event, besides marking the first recorded miracle attributed to the picture, is the earliest known invocation of Mary's patronage under her consoling title, Our Perpetual Help. Upon arriving in Italy, the merchant went to Rome, taking up residence in a friend's house. He was filled with deep gratitude for the special favor granted him by the Mother of God, and was confident that divine providence had brought him and the picture safely to the eternal city. When therefore this pious exile began to suffer from a sudden critical illness, he confided to his Roman friend the history of the treasured picture. Upon hearing this miraculous story, the Roman promised that in the event that his house guest should die, he would turn the picture over to a church. The Cretan sickness proved fatal, and the events which followed are quoted here from the Vatican document. After the merchant's death, the picture was found among his goods, but the Roman's wife prevailed upon him with many entreaties to keep it in the house, and having placed it in her bedroom, she kept it there for 9 months. The glorious Virgin admonished the Roman in a vision not to keep the picture, but to put it in some more honorable place. He paid no heed. After some time had elapsed, the Virgin again returned, admonishing him not to keep the picture in his house. He disregarded this second vision, and so the Virgin admonished him once more, adding that if he did not restore it to some church, he would die an untimely death. Whereupon the Roman began to fear, and in the morning recounted everything to his wife, beseeching her to donate the picture to some church. She expressed astonishment that he should say such things. She insisted that she was a Christian, not a pagan, that they were not the only ones who kept such a picture in their homes. The Roman yielded to his wife. Again the Virgin returned, telling him in a vision, "Behold, many times I have admonished you, and urged you even with threats to take me forth from your home, and you did not want to believe. It is necessary now that you first be taken forth, so that afterwards I may find a more honorable place." Shortly afterwards, the Roman took sick and died. Then the Virgin came in a vision to the Roman's daughter, and said, "Go to your mother and grandfather and say to them, Holy Mary of Perpetual Help tells you to take her from your house, otherwise all of you will die soon." The girl related the vision to her mother. Then the mother began to fear, because she too had had a similar vision, and realizing that she had been the cause of her husband's death, she began to weep, and straightway decided once and for all to remove the picture from her house. A neighbor, noticing her weeping, implored her to tell why she was so sad. The mother recounted everything to her concerning her husband's vision, how she had disbelieved, and how because of her protests and objections he had died, that she grieved because she was the cause of her husband's death. The neighbor made answer, "You deceive yourself. The Virgin Mary is in heaven, and is not concerned with what is done to her painted pictures here below. If you were to put it in the fire, the flames would consume it just like any other piece of wood. But if you are so timid," she concluded, "give it to me." And she added many other words of abuse. That evening, when the neighbor went home with the picture, she was stricken with a strange disease. By praying and making a promise before the picture, she was cured. Again Our Lady appeared to the widow's daughter. The little girl told her mother that Mary wanted her image venerated between the basilicas of St. Mary Major and St. John Lateran. Of the hundreds of churches in Rome at this time, only one satisfied Our Lady's specification, the Augustinian Fathers' Church of St. Matthew the Apostle. The widow, wishing to comply immediately with Our Lady's latest request, surrendered the picture to the care of the Augustinians. The prior at St. Matthew's gratefully accepted the sacred image and began to make arrangements for its solemn enshrinement. On March 27, 1499, a procession through the streets of Rome, blessed by an abundance of spectacular miracles, became the first public veneration of the holy picture in the Eternal City. Immediately there followed a ceremony for its enthronement above the main altar of St. Matthew's, where for 300 years it remained a source of great consolation to sin-laden man. Little did anyone realize in 1499 that the glories of this ancient icon would one day be temporarily all but forgotten. But in 1798, with the invasion of Rome by the French Masonic forces under Napoleon, St. Matthew's and 30 other Catholic churches were reduced to ruins. The Augustinian fathers evacuated their beloved church in advance of the hateful deed, retiring to St. Mary's Church in Pastorula. They took with them the Miraculous portrait and privately venerated it for some 68 years, protecting it from the infidels. The avowed enemies of the Holy Catholic Church, led by Satan, had won a major battle in uprooting public devotion to Our Lady through her favored painting. But the same woman whom the book of Ecclesiasticus prophetically described as the mother of holy hope did not forsake her suffering children of the Church. The forces of darkness enjoyed only a temporary triumph, as the Blessed Virgin, in her patience, prepared the means of restoring and tremendously increasing the former glories of her famous portrait. And destined to be highly instrumental in this, her victory, was the Congregation of the Most Holy Redeemer. The Redemptorists were founded by the great doctor of the Church, St. Alphonsus Maria de Liguori, who died in 1787. His disciples moved from their original house in Nocera de Pagnani to Rome in 1855 by request of Pope Pius IX. For their new monastery, the congregation purchased an old Roman palace on the Via Merlana. The palace itself they converted into a residence, and next to it they constructed a beautiful church in honor of St. Alphonsus. Now, in choosing this site on the Via Merlana, the only road between St. Mary Major's and St. John Lateran's, they had unknowingly and mystically built their church almost on the exact spot where St. Matthew's Church once stood.
Stay with us. We'll be back with more from the housetops after this break.
Hello, friends. This is Father Wade Menezes with the Fathers of Mercy and EWTN, and I want to thank you for listening to Queen of Perpetual Help Radio, WQPH 89.3 FM.
No way. No! That is crazy. I do. I mean, I've never seen that before.
So we're here at Sacred Hearts Church, and I ran into a very dear friend, Deacon Patino. Deacon, you know, it's the summer and people's faith is getting cold while the heat is coming. What can people do to stimulate and rise up their level of love for God in the summer when it's so hot?
I think that the most important thing right now is to become closer to the Eucharist, to Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament. For those Catholics that have fallen away, for those Catholics that want to find a reason why to come to church, the best and the greatest gift that the Lord has given to us is His presence, body, soul, and divinity in the Holy Eucharist. So I encourage all of you to come before Jesus in the presence, in the tabernacle, and talk to Him, and let Him talk to you. Jesus wants to hear you. So I invite all of you to come before the Blessed Sacrament and pray and talk to Him and tell Him how much you love Him. God bless you all.
Most Sacred Heart of Jesus, truly present in the Holy Eucharist, I consecrate my body and soul to be entirely one with your heart, being sacrificed at every instant on all the altars of the world and giving praise to the Father, pleading for the coming of His kingdom. Please receive this humble offering of myself. Use me as you will for the glory of the Father and the salvation of souls. Most Holy Mother of God, never let me be separated from your divine Son. Please defend and protect me as your special child. Amen.
When Our Lady appeared to the children of Fatima, one of the things she said to them every time she appeared is, I want you to come here on the 13th of each month. So I like to promote our candlelight processions at the Shrine of Our Lady of Fatima in Brighton on the 13th of each month from May through October at 8 p.m. We have Father Ed Riley, who's coming, who's the chaplain of the World Apostolate of Fatima and a regular at the Shrine. So please join us, 8 p.m.
155 Washington Street, Brighton.
You are listening to WQPH 89.3 FM Shirley, Fitchburg. And now a word from author Peter and Jemmy, who is the host of Your Prayer Intentions, taking place every Saturday at 12:30 p.m.
Whether you're donating money or giving us prayers, without you, we don't go on. And if you do want to help us go on, please consider going to WQPHradio.org. There's a donate button there. You can give once, you can give monthly, and it makes a difference. It keeps all of our shows, and we have a great lineup of shows, keeps us going. And whether you're a fan of Your Prayer Intentions, whether you like Steve's show, Benedict's Harris Sundays at midnight, whether you like Brother Matthew and Brother Anthony from the Housetops, which is on Sundays 10:30 a.m. and 4 p.m., whether you're a fan of the Children's Rosary, which we have every day at 5 p.m. 7 days a week, Whether you like our Local Matters show, which is Saturday at 11, or Talk Catholic, which comes right after us at 12:30. Larry's Music Off, Sunday at 11 a.m. We have the Shepherd's Pie Saturdays at 1 p.m. Or Dan and Tom with the 13th Apostle, which comes just before us at 11:30. Any of those shows and all the stuff, you donate, you help these things come out. But what also at the WQPH website, in addition to podcasts of our shows, is the prayer wall.
Right on the prayer wall, support WQPH and get WQPH 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on WQPHradio.org.
We invite you to say the prayer to St. Michael the Archangel. Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, thrust into hell Satan and all evil spirits who wander through the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen.
Hi, this is Teresa Tomeo, and you're listening to WQPH Shirley Fitchburg on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
From the Housetops is a Catholic magazine dedicated to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, while promoting her cause in the present conflict with the powers of darkness. The issue, featuring St. Paul Miki and the Martyrs of Japan, relates the story of 26 uncompromising heroes of the faith who gave their lives for preaching the gospel of Christ. What was designed to be a terror tactic by the government turned out to be one of the most notable scenes of martyrdom throughout the centuries, planting the seed of faith deep into the heart of the Japanese people. To request your free copy of From the Housetops St. Paul Miki issue, email info@stbenedict.com.
We return now to Our Lady of Perpetual Help with Muriel Delaney.
Close to 60 years had elapsed since the destruction of that Augustinian church and the transfer of the picture to Pastorula, when in 1863 the first step toward restoring the painting's previous fame was taken. A Redemptorist priest discovered the interesting facts about the old church that once stood on the present site of St. Alphonsus Church, and about the miraculous portrait that it once sheltered. In mentioning this to his fellow religious during recreation one evening, this seemingly trivial information stirred more than trivial interest. Another priest, Michael Markey, then remembered having seen this picture of Our Lady of Perpetual Help at the Augustinian monastery in Pastorula. Often having served Mass there as a young boy, he had befriended one of the old brothers who showed young Michael the beautiful icon and told him of the once famous Church of St. Matthew. All were impressed by the story, but no one, including Father Markey, knew of the Blessed Mother's command that the relic be venerated on that location. 1 month later, however, the Redemptorist Fathers came to discover this heavenly directive. At a church in Rome, a Jesuit priest preached on the lost Madonna of Perpetual Help, telling in his discourse of Our Lady's repeated request that her image be enshrined between the two famous basilicas. News of the sermon stirred excitement in the Redemptorist house, where for several weeks the story told by Father Markey had been a topic of great interest. The facts at hand seemed to indicate Our Lady's will that the picture be entrusted to the Redemptorists and honored at their church of St. Alphonsus. The Superior General of the Order, Most Reverend Nicholas Moron, cautiously waited 2 years before taking decisive action in the matter, while the Redemptorist community at large committed themselves to ardent prayer, petitioning Mary to choose them as the guardians of her sacred image. Finally, on December 11, 1865, Father Moron presented all the facts concerning the picture to Pope Pius IX. The Holy Father, upon hearing the story, expressed much interest and proceeded that very day to make the necessary arrangements for the transfer of the holy icon back to the site chosen by Our Lady. 5 weeks later, the Redemptress received the miraculous portrait, and in April of 1866 it was solemnly enshrined at the Church of St. Alphonsus. The picture was carried through the streets of Rome as it had been 367 years before, when a procession led to St. Matthew's. The Blessed Mother made known her pleasure by showering the faithful who lined the streets with tremendous favors. The Pope himself visited the new shrine during the Triduum of Thanksgiving that commenced the following day. Thousands of pilgrims followed his example as great crowds filled the church weeks after the festivities were over. On June 23, 1867, the Vatican took the final measures in officially recognizing the painting as truly miraculous. 2 gold crowns were placed on the heads of Jesus and Mary, an honor bestowed by the Dean of the Vatican chapter, approving public veneration of the image, its miracles, and its history. As a result, devotion to Our Lady of Perpetual Help grew tremendously throughout the world. Within 9 years, Pope Pius IX had organized an arch-confraternity to promote new devotion and had established the Feast of Our Lady of Perpetual Help as the Sunday immediately preceding the Feast of St. John the Baptist. Shortly after the original had been exposed to public veneration in Rome, copies of it were made, blessed, touched to the original, and then transmitted to various parts of the world. One was sent to the Mission Church in Boston. The painting arrived here in the month of Our Lady, May 1871. Appropriately, the Redemptress Fathers chose to enthrone the image of Perpetual Help, to whom their mission church was dedicated, above its main altar in solemn ceremony on Pentecost Sunday, May 28th. A large crowd gathered in the streets for the great event, long before the start of the magnificent procession that escorted Mary's picture to its humble shrine. And in that glorious hour, the miraculous icon already began to manifest its powers of charm in New England. No sooner had the painting been displayed for veneration than its ceaseless wonders started. Several supplicants of Mary's mercy began novenas during the Triduum honoring Our Lady of Perpetual Help. Among them was a mother whose little girl had been afflicted since birth with a disease that produced an unhealing and extremely painful open wound on the child's foot. 3 days later, the girl's wound was found to be completely healed. Less than 2 days passed before the petitions of another client had been blessed. This time the beneficiary was a woman who had suffered 15 years with a disease that baffled and defied the skill of the best physicians in Boston. Finally, having abandoned all human hope, she turned to the Mother of Perpetual Help. A few days after starting her novena, all traces of the incurable disease disappeared. In March 1872, an elderly woman stricken with palsy beyond the hope of medical remedy approached a priest from Mission Church and asked if he could do anything for her. The priest blessed the woman, gave her a medal of the Blessed Virgin, and instructed her to make a novena to Our Lady of Perpetual Help. The woman returned to him a few days later, restored to complete health. In no time, the frame church at Roxbury Crossing was being thronged with clients of Perpetual Help. So much so, in fact, that construction of a much larger church had to be started only 13 years after the original Mission Church was opened. That new church is the present Basilica of Our Lady of Perpetual Help, which was dedicated in 1878, and which today is one of the most beautiful churches in the United States. Yet for all its great size, the breathtaking basilica still was found inadequate to accommodate fully the many thousands who regularly flocked to this shrine of miracles in these earlier years. Many, to be sure, came principally to present their petitions to the Merciful Queen depicted in the wonder-working painting. Not a few of these were answered with spectacular blessings. For the years between 1871 and 1884, writes Father Byrne, no less than 331 well-authenticated cures had been reported, some of which had been wrought in favor of people living so far away as West Virginia and Texas. Inside a 6-month period, from January 1st to May 31st, 1886, 31 cures, apparently beyond the power of nature to effect, were reported. But one of the greatest days in the history of the shrine, in the opinion of its official historian, was the Feast of the Immaculate Conception, December 8, 1891, on which as many as 7 extraordinary cures were effected. Today the faithful, the hopeful, the loving children of Mary still come and kneel before her miraculous portrait. But sad to say, their numbers have dwindled sharply. What is the reason? Certainly it is not that our sweet Mother of Mercy has failed us. After all, she is perpetual help, and in fact she is bestowing her loving favors on those who ask for them even at this very moment. Then what is the reason that so few come to her now? It can hardly be that we do not need her gracious aid any more. No, the only answer is that people no longer believe in miracles. Perhaps today this is because so many people have so little faith. In short, it would seem that we have failed our Heavenly Mother. Indeed, then, we do need her aid more than ever before. It would be fitting that we close our thoughts on our Mother of Perpetual Help with the beautiful closing lines of the official novena to her. Take me under thy protection, and it is enough for me. For if thou protect me, I fear nothing. Not for my sins, because thou wilt obtain for me the pardon of them. Not from the devils, for thou art more powerful than all hell together. Not even from Jesus, my judge, because by one prayer from thee he will be appeased. But one thing I fear in the hour of temptation. I may through negligence fail to have recourse to thee, and thus perish miserably. Obtain for me, therefore, pardon of my sins, love for Jesus, final perseverance, and the grace ever to have recourse to thee, O Mother of Perpetual Help.
From the Housetops is produced by the Slaves of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, Still River, Massachusetts.